Hey everyone, this is MrAddOil again, helping you fight your today for your better tomorrow. So in this video, we're going to talk about the typical software sales career progression, and we're going to talk about the two types of salespersons in a typical software company. So it's divided into two. There are new business sales reps or hunters, and there are post-sales software sales reps, also known as farmers. And then as we cover these type of roles, we will also talk about the salary gradients of each progression. So we're gonna get started with that now. So we're gonna start off with the new business segment, so the hunters. So for this type of sales role, you're in charge of getting new businesses, or you're in charge of driving new revenue streams, right? This would involve cold calling, doing cold outreach, going to conferences, and getting new clients into your business, into your pipeline, get these new books so that you're making new dollar bills for your company. So we'll talk about the typical roles in this segment coming up. Actually, before talking about the roles, let's talk about the salary grades in this segment. So usually there's just an easy way to understand how much money you can make in being in a hunter new business type of role in these three tiers. The first one is small business, second is mid-market, and then third is enterprise, right? So the general rule of thumb is small businesses, you don't make as much. You'll probably be within the 50K base salary to like maybe a 50K commission variable. For most companies, they value or they prefer the 50-50 split, meaning that you get there's a 50% base and 50% commission variable to your overall salary. So if you think about it in that light, so an SMB account executive, which is what you want to aim towards, would be making maybe, let's say, an average of 50K base, and then based on the amount of sales they generate, they make the rest of their salary with a 50% commission variable. So on the SMB side, like I mentioned, it'll be on average, you'll have like a 50K base, and then your commission variable might be 10, 20, 30, and even up to 100K if you overachieve. So that's on the small business side. Next, the mid-market segment. So when you're here and you're an account executive, you will be around, you probably have like a base of 60 on the low end, and then 70, 80K on the higher end. And then in terms of your variable payout, it will range from 100K up to 160K, right? That 50-50 split. And if you overachieve based on how that company or that sales org structures their payout, you can have accelerators where if you go over your quota for a quarter or for the whole year, you will get like X times 2 or times 4 of the difference you make in overachieving. The last segment will be enterprise sales, right? If you're really serious about your software sales career, you really want to land up in this type of role as fast as possible, but also you want to be prepared to be in this role because it's much harder. The sales cycles are more complex. It's a high risk, high reward type of role. But in this segment, your base salary will be at least 100K. And then if you apply the 50-50 split model when it comes to compensation and salary, your quota will probably be like $1 million. And then if it's on a 10% commission structure, then once you close $1 million, you get a $100,000 payout. So making your overall salary 200K. And that's just like a baseline or base model of your salary. Of course, your employers, they want you, or your boss will want you to overachieve and hit maybe $250,000 or even like 300K of overachievement. But that's what you would typically kind of expect in an enterprise account executive role. Granted, if you have the choice or the option of being in this role selling to enterprise companies, but maybe your base was around 80, even like 70K, 70K is probably lowballing it, but like around 80K, I would still take it because it's a great experience to get, and you want to be in an enterprise sales type of role. All right, now that we kind of covered the salary gradients for the new business or hunter type of roles, let's talk about the actual roles itself. I've been talking about account executives, this type of role, but even before you get there, you're gonna have to start at this role, what we call a sales development rep or representative. SDR, BDR, they're the same essentially for most software companies. And truth be told, this is the entry level to getting into software sales in most cases. And they usually, this role itself is a lead generation type of role, meaning that your sole purpose or what you're getting graded on is finding new prospects or new leads and booking meetings with them for account executives. This, in some SDR roles where it's a little bit more fun, you actually get to go through the qualification process, meaning that you find someone that's actually interested in your company, your service, your product. You go through a qualification call that's like 15 minutes, you understand their pain points, and then once you feel that that lead is a mutual fit, then you pass them over and schedule a meeting with an account executive. That's a decent SDR role, right? For the majority of SDR roles, especially on these higher ends, like enterprise SDR roles, you're essentially a telemarketer, meaning that you're busting cold calls, and then when a client or a lead is actually interested, you're just taking that lead or taking that person and booking an appointment with an account executive. Those roles are not as fun because it's pretty mundane and you don't really learn much because you're just smiling, dialing, and then making sure, and then you're just jumping on the opportunity when there's someone actually interested in booking an appointment. And then once they're interested, you only get them for a couple minutes, maybe like an hour of handling that lead, but then you're transferring it over to an account executive. And then in the SDR segment, I mean, this applies to every sales role, right? There's SMB, mid-market, and enterprise as SDRs. I'm gonna probably talk about this later, but I would recommend that you find a full sales cycle SDR role, because this is essentially equivalent to being an account executive, because you're managing the entire sales cycle from the first contact of the lead all the way to the close. So this is a better role for you to get into if you are a new college grad and you're starting, and then you can only find like SDR roles. Try to fish out or try to mine for a full sales cycle SDR role. You won't regret it. Or you can try and find another hidden gem, which is like an SMB account executive. Granted, it'll be harder if you had no sales experience. In those situations, I would recommend that you find a full sales cycle SDR, because they're essentially the same. And once you have closing experience, what that means is you actually closed the deal, generated revenue for a company, then you can use that experience and jump into an SMB account executive role 1 year out or close to 1 year out of within your tenure of that company that employed you as a full sales cycle SDR. Usually for a full sales cycle SDR, it's on the SMB side, so you won't be closing a lot of big deals. You'll probably be closing deal sizes from like 500 to a maximum of like 5,000. But I would advise that you take that role, learn from it, because it's much better. It's a more robust role than just a pure telemarketer, cold calling, appointment booking SDR. Cool. Next, after the SDR role, which is an entry-level role to get into software sales, would be an account executive. You want to be in this role because it's a more pleasurable, fun experience. You're actually talking to an account or stakeholders in an account, and you're actually going through the qualification process, figuring out their pain points, their challenges, and being a consultant and trying to see if the product that you're selling can actually solve that problem, versus an SDR whose sole purpose is to kind of see or vet an account or a company to see if they have surface level pains that can be identified as deeper pains which your company's software or product can solve for. And this segment will be pretty short. You want to be in an account executive role because it's a closing role. That's number one. You make more money. It's a more fun role. And from here, after becoming an AE, an account executive, your doors will open for you a bit more. You can transition into what we'll be talking about later on as a post-sales type of role. This would include customer success managers, account managers, or even sales engineers, which is a hybrid role between sales and some sort of technical skill, which we'll talk about later on in this video. But you want to be in an account executive role because you make more money in this type of role. And my advice is if you can skip the SDR role and land an SMB AE role, you should do that. That should be your first priority. And then once you get that opportunity, try to stick it out for at least 1 year before you jump and try to find a mid-market AE type of role. Honestly, if you could go through this progression of SMB AE, mid-market, and then into an enterprise AE role, that would be the best, because you'll get, in your experience as an SMB AE, you can go through mistakes, go through dumb stuff that is forgivable in this type of segment because there's less to lose. There's more leads, inbound leads in that segment. But as you go into the mid-market, and especially in the enterprise side, leads are really hard to come by. And then if you mess up in any part of your sales cycle for these type of mid-market and enterprise leads, you can get fired, like no joke. It's very serious in those high stake type of environments because the sales cycles are much longer. In a mid-market AE role, you can expect deal sizes to be at a minimum 3 months to 6 months, right? And then when it's breaching pseudo enterprise deals, it's gonna be like close to a year for a mid-market account to close. And on the enterprise side, like a minimum of half a year, 6 months to even get maybe a foot in the door, to get a pilot of your product before that company buys your product in full. So where are we? So I think we're on the mid-market AE type of role. You want to graduate from the SMB AE role into the mid-market and probably dance around this or get well acquainted with this type of role for like another 1 to 2 years. And then you want to graduate into the enterprise AE role. So in an enterprise AE role, like I mentioned, you will be calling or you'll be prospecting Fortune whatever companies, Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, bigger accounts for bigger deals and for bigger payouts, right? The downfall of like enterprise AE roles or enterprise sales roles is it's a pretty annoying sales process. Like I mentioned, like it takes at least 6 months and there's multiple stakeholders, right? You probably get your foot in at maybe like the IT department, but you realize that the real decision makers they're normally like executives, but they might be like hidden decision makers, and you have to find and navigate through the organization or the structure of an enterprise company, and you'll probably be dealing with multiple departments like marketing, sales, business development, product engineering, and eventually up to the executive leadership team for you to successfully sell your product to that enterprise account. So like I mentioned, with great risk or great headache, great pain comes great payout. So if a deal does close in an enterprise sales setting, your payout is a lot. And once you land in this enterprise AE type of role, depending on what your goals are, if your sole goal is just to make money, I would just stay in the enterprise AE role. Like I wouldn't even consider trying to move up and become like a sales director or a VP of sales if your goal is just to make a lot of money, because an enterprise AE role is very lucrative and there's much more like work-life balance around that versus trying to go up into management. But I think I went on a tangent, but those are the most common, or those are the new business hunter type of roles in a software sales setting. Actually, scratch that. There's one role that I want to cover before we go into the post-sales type of roles, and that role is called the sales engineer. Why do I want to talk about this role? Well, I think if you're serious about sales, I mean, you get in, you're a recent college grad, you get in, you start as an SDR, you get promoted to an AE, and you work through your AE type of career progression, and you land upon like a mid-market AE, and you're kind of considering like, do I want to do enterprise sales? Do I want to be an enterprise AE? Maybe you dabble with that, and you survive for like 6 months or a year, and you're like, man, the stress is killing me. Like, and it's kind of mundane, it's kind of boring, and you want to consider a different career, but you don't want to get into marketing or a non-customer facing role. Sales engineering or being a sales engineer might be a better fit for you. So in that role, you are still on the new business side, but you, depending on the role, most common SE or sales engineer roles, they help with the pre-sales type of work. So your role as a sales engineer involves interfacing with technical stakeholders. That might be a CTO or product manager, a systems engineer, and you're giving them a demo, a technical demo of your product. And I would argue that this is a really fun role to be in because you're placing 2 feet in 2 different type of roles, or just 2 different types of skill sets, right? You're wearing the business sales executive hat, and you're also playing the role as maybe like a product manager or like an engineer in these conversations. So it's a much more, I personally feel it's a much more rewarding, engaging type of role because it's just more fun. You're doing sales and you are being a technical consultant at the same time. So that might be something that you can do more research on and plan your ascension into this role, because these are kind of unicorn, or I want to say unicorn, they're out there, but it's really hard to get into that because it's not an entry-level role. It's a more of a junior, arguably a senior type of role, and you need a specific skill set and a specific experience to be in that type of role. So you would have to have sales experience, closing deals, and you would have to have like coding experience at the same time. So it's a harder role to get into, get your foot in, but once you get in there, it's a pretty chill type of role because you're not directly carrying a full burdensome sales quota that an account executive will carry. You'll be tasked with carrying the quota, a portion of a quota of a team of account executives, but you're not directly holding or carrying that quota yourself. So it's a way more stress-free type of role and is a more fun role. So consider that as part of something that you can evolve into if you're thinking about software sales. Hey, now we're going to talk about post-sales type of roles. So what that means is post-sales type of roles. This involves dealing with prospects or just dealing with customers. So in these type of roles, you are in charge of a book of accounts, book of customers, and your sole purpose is to help them renew. And also within this renewal process, identify other opportunities for upsells. So common roles or names of roles in this post-sales type of segment would be an account manager, customer success manager. Actually, those are the two most common names in this arena. So let's talk about those two. So first, on the account manager side, I've seen people who just directly jump into an account management type of role out of the gate. That's on the more, I would like to argue on the rare side, because companies want you to have some sort of exposure on a new business side so that you will value the importance of helping or retaining customers and helping them renew. Because companies, they usually dish out a lot of resources, capitals to acquire a customer, and they're very emotional and touchy about having someone who's inexperienced deal with existing customers. Because if an existing customer churns, that costs the company way more money than just acquiring a new customer, because to reestablish maybe like a 3-4 year business relationship with a new customer is harder than just keeping an existing customer happy and just helping them renew year after year. So the first entry level, I guess, like post-sales type of role that you can explore will be some sort of customer success associate, or even like associate account manager. Depending on your background as in college, if you're a recent grad, or if you're a career changer, depending on your professional background, you can immediately jump into like a full account manager type of role. Or if you're a recent college grad, probably explore being an associate or a customer success associate, entry level post-sales type of role. I would argue, in retrospect, if I had to do it over, I would probably explore this type of role first, and here are the reasons why. So doing post-sales, you actually understand the product more, and you understand the customer pain way more than being just an SDR. In the SDR role, you're spending most of your energy, your time, and all your worries and all that stress trying to find new businesses or new clients to book appointments with and to close. So you're just focusing purely on sales. You're like, man, I have a quota that's hanging over my head. I have a boss that's really demanding. I just have a huge responsibility to make sales. So you're just focusing on saying enough, giving enough to make sure a deal closed. But on the post-sales side, you still have that responsibility of helping them renew, but it's a much easier conversation than on the new business side. And then within this process, like you get to do fun stuff. Like, let's say a client has actual technical issues. You can play the support role, learn more about the technical side of your product, because you'll be doing a lot of troubleshooting, communicating via email or even live meeting of how to solve that technical issue. And then on the business side, like, you get to talk to these customers and be like, hey, what are your goals? What are the roadblocks or obstacles in preventing you from achieving those goals? How can I help you? And then in that process, you can actually work with a customer, identify their challenges that they're having, and seeing and implementing the right solutions that your product can provide to overcome these hurdles and challenges. It's a much more fun role, and in this role, you're learning a lot. You're learning how to deal with customers and their pain points. You're also understanding much more of like the pain points and challenges of this market. You're learning more about the product. That means you're less of a salesperson, you're more of a consultant, and it's just easier for a client to kind of trust you in that setting, because there is an existing business relationship, And in this type of role, like a customer success or account manager, a customer success role, they know that your success in your role or your job description is to help them be successful, right? Right. So on the flip side, we were just talking about account managers, right? Account managers they're more of a sales role on the post-sales side. So they are usually tasked with straight up renewals and upsells opportunities. So it's closer to a traditional new business sales role, but it's still less stressful because you're just dealing with customers and you're just helping them renew. And I would argue that if you had a choice, become a customer success manager, because your options of a career for your career progression development is bigger. Like I mentioned, you understand the customer pain and you understand your company's product. So I've seen customer success managers who are like, okay, I'm kind of tired of a customer facing role, and then they transition into marketing or even like product management, which are pretty fun roles. But if you're an account manager, it's kind of hard to do that because you're technically just a salesperson on the back end side, which is helping customers renew. So that might be harder. But if you're a technical account manager, I've seen this type of career progression also where they've been doing that for like 1-2 years and they switch into become like a product manager or like a QA engineer, just like a non-customer facing side type of role. And if that might be something that you might consider, like maybe you're thinking as a recent college grad or a career changer, like, yeah, I want to try out the sales role, try a customer facing role, and then I want to have a backup plan, which is really smart, and switch into a non-customer facing role. Being a customer success manager might be a better fit, even for your current situation and for your long-term situation, right? Or career goal. And from a customer success CSM, you can transition easier into a sales engineer role if you still want to be on a new business side, but you don't want to directly carry the heavy burden of a full sales quota. So those are food for thoughts for you to consider on the post-sales side. And that's what I have for this video on the typical career progression in software sales. So a quick recap, there's 2 types of sales roles here, right? There's the new business side, or the hunters who generate new business, new revenue for the company. And then there's the post-sales side, which deals with customer renewals and just manages a book of customers, existing customers for a company. You know, ponder around that. Typically, if you want to get into software sales, it's much easier to get on the new business side. And I'll talk about reasons why that's easier versus trying to just jump into like a post-sales type of role in my video about the top 10 positive reasons of why you should consider software sales. So that's the next video coming up. But in this video, you want to think about the information that I present and think of, should I stay in new business side, which is better because it's more lucrative, that's the upside, but it's more stressful, or do I want to be in a happy middle where it is lucrative and is more stable on the post-sale side? So those are my, pieces of information for you who might be a college grad, or for you who might be someone thinking about transitioning in sales from a different career path. Whatever the case, I'll love to learn a little bit more about what you're going through, your thought processes in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, because more videos will come out. And I did forget to mention this in my last video, but I wrote like a very comprehensive blog post about this, like 6,000 words. It's pretty long. But if you are really thinking about this and want to make a good decision, I recommend that you take a look at that, a comprehensive look at that blog post in helping you make that decision. And links to that blog post will be in my YouTube description. But again, this is MrAddOil, helping you fight your today for your better tomorrow. And I'll see you in the next video.